All right, I'm with Pastor Walter.
All right.
So, so how I want this conversation to go around, right? I want it to be like you doing some more form of a lecture, not necessarily a lecture, but I just want you to speak as an expert, right? And then I'll ask questions as you're speaking, or I hope that makes sense.
It's got free for all. Interesting. All right.
Yes. So I think for people who are listening, they kind of like know Pastor Walter at the moment, and this is one of our. Let me not say too much, actually.
Oh, continue. I'm listening.
No. I want to say that I don't want to say too much, but I just want to give us this opportunity just for us to have a conversation. But I want this to be you speaking more than me asking questions. But we will get to the part where we're going to ask questions as we have agreed before.
Good.
So yeah, please take the stage, sir.
Beautiful. I think asking questions is very important. I think to every counselor, particularly a marriage counselor, when your audience, and the people that you're working with are asking questions, it's a very important thing because it shows that they're engaging and they're present. It's different from, university in class where you just sit and the lecturer goes, even lecturers in university, if they don't get questions, it's an issue. You know very well that these guys were on WhatsApp the whole lecture.
Yeah.
So feel free to ask questions.
Okay.
I think when it comes to relationships, I can talk on and on and on and on, and I don't want us to go there. So I think your questions can guide probably, things that you would want your audience to get answered and things like that. So feel free
Okay.
to ask any questions.
Sure.
Feel free to ask any questions. Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be back again. Thank you very much, Shepherd, for inviting me back again. Really appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to more.
Yes, sir.
In 2023,
Yeah.
we'll see more what we can do. They always say distance is not a barrier. Hopefully, we can prove it.
Yes, and I think we talked last time about you being the best throughout, and I know before this session we're gonna post the other one that we had earlier on.
Oh, nice.
And I know it's gonna have the same numbers that it had before because of the things that we talked about. So you are valuable so much to the podcast, and we really appreciate your input. And it seems like even the audience, they actually love the part when we talk about relationships, and I think you might have helped so many because the most people who came to me, it was actually ladies. Like, I really enjoyed that one. I really enjoyed that one.
Beautiful.
So I guess guys, even though they enjoyed it, probably they don't really come and tell you, I like this. but I think the ladies, they actually enjoyed it a lot because I think the things that we touched on was also on cohabiting, and I think it was the mistakes that women do.
Oh,
Yes.
That was the first.
That's the first one, yes. So I think the ladies loved it so much.
We were supposed to do mistakes that men make.
Men do as well, yes. I think what we'll do is we'll actually edit as well for the session. I think the session. I have a feeling that the session is going to be very long.
How many hours are we here?
Yeah, so I think where the time takes us, we'll go with it. But I think you can just take over from here.
Beautiful. And I won an award. Thank you very much for my award.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I actually sent it to you, right? Yes, on Spotify. Yes.
Showed it to my wife. I'm like, baby, look at this.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, thank you very much for that. I enjoy talking about relationships, and I think one thing that I can do without thinking about anything else is talking about relationships. It's probably my comfort zone where I assist people through their love life, from a place where there is confusion to a place where everything is clearer. I think that's the beauty of what I do. When I start with a couple, I specialize primarily on premarital counseling. I think that's my area of specialty at the moment. I enjoy it a lot. Um, Not that I don't deal with married couples, I deal with them, but their problems are a little bit mature. I enjoy the young ones with younger problems and
Yeah.
fresh problems.
New love.
Yeah, you know. So I enjoy it when I see a couple coming into my office and um, there's a rift between them and there's, all of those issues. And I just ask them to say, what, give me 3 months of your time. Let's talk and see what we can get out of those 3 months, And at the end of it, it's beautiful when you see a mindset that has shifted and changed, from somebody who was a little bit hopeless or even very hopeless, and their situation has been turned not for them to be hopeful, but they are now becoming an advocate or something. I remember I had a session with a couple, and we were talking about respect
Okay.
and submission. And she looked at me, she's like, you know what? This topic, I know what you're going to say. And just to let you know, I'm not one of those ladies that buy into submission. I'm not one of those ladies. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
wow. I've got an interesting couple for today. So, I was like, no, don't worry. I don't want you to buy into it. I just want you to sit and listen, to me as I talk, and ask me questions at the end. And then we can discuss and we see, if we can agree at least to one or two things, out of this chat. And we talked. I think it was about an hour session. And we talked, and then at the end, she was just looking at me, and you could see that she was very serious, And from that conversation, at the end, I'm like, okay, so any questions? What do you think? Because I had to take a teaching role,
Yeah.
in that session, a little bit more on that. And very interestingly enough, she came out of that session. She's like, you know what? I think I was fighting it because I didn't understand it. And I'm like, definitely. And that's what people do. Something that you don't understand, it doesn't work for you, and you don't place value in it because you don't understand what it is. And she not only understood submission, but she became a proponent.
Advocate.
She became an advocate
Yes,
to say, I
yes.
don't understand why women can't submit,
Yeah,
to their husbands. And she started doing that, and her relationship just shoot off the lights, got married, and so happily ever after.
Yeah.
And simply because of one principle that they were not understanding, they had issues in the relationship. So when you look at it, you realize that I think from my perspective, when I look at it, I'm like, that's the joy of what I do, where there was a potential to say, well, obviously, if they got married still having not fixed this issue, the marriage wasn't going to last.
Yes.
Because it's a critical part of marriage, and that understanding is critical. So I think I enjoy what I do mainly because of that. When I see people starting from zero and they are becoming something, and it's beautiful. I think you said I should talk.
Yes, sir. Feel
Just
free.
talk.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. I think one thing that I would want to touch on the most is the area of, I'm just trying to figure out a word that I can put it. If I can sum it in one word.
One word, yeah.
You see, marriage is beautiful, and love is a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing. People who desire love, people who desire marriage. I think if you have a desire to get married one day, you've got a goal that's important. You pursue it. If you don't desire it, then that's okay. But those who desire marriage, it's a good thing, and there's so much benefits. There's so much good things that you can't even compare the relationship to many other relationships that we have. And just to speak to somebody who, you're looking at it and you're like, wow, how am I gonna get there? Maybe you're a single lady and or a single guy, and you're looking at the prevailing situations. I had a conversation um, with with a lady. Um, I think maybe the title of what I'm talking about, we can call it a hope in love or marriage or something like that.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking of a gentleman that I had a chat with after I had spoken to his fiancée at that time. They were together for I think almost 6 years
Okay.
at the time that I met them, and marriage was not in sight
So they were 6 years engaged,
in a relationship.
or just in a relationship.
Well, they were engaged for I think about 2 years, and the guy was not talking about anything. And then the other 4 years they were beloveds.
Okay.
And the guy is, you know, um, a man who fears God, loves God, and knows that marriage is the way to go. But at a certain point in the relationship, he realized that no, he wouldn't want to get married because everybody that he has seen ahead of him is either struggling in their marriage or they're divorcing or they're divorced. So the lady contacted me, and her story was, I need help. I've been with a guy for I don't know
6 years,
why.
yeah.
Is it because of something that I'm not doing? Is it because he doesn't think? Is it because she started now thinking that the problem was with her? That's why the guy was stalling, on marriage. And I was like, well, look, we can easily get to the bottom of it. Sometimes you need somebody who can speak for you.
Yeah.
It's something that I've learned from my pastor, Pastor Mto,
Yeah.
that there are certain cases, certain places where you can't speak for yourself, because maybe you still have to learn and mature and get there. You need somebody who speaks for you. So I was like, look, set up a meeting with the guy. Let's talk. Let's just talk. They were in another province, so they set up this meeting, and I was just relaxing and relating with the gentleman, talking and talking. And then I ended up getting to the real question, to say, what are the goals? What are your goals for the next 12 months? And then what about the next 2 years? And what are your plans with her? And at the beginning, he was trying to,
Give you professional answers.
exactly.
Kiri.
And then later on, I think he became a little bit more comfortable. And then that's when he started opening up to say, you know what, I want to get married, but when I look into everybody around me, I see people that are having issues everywhere. Their marriages are not happy. You look at others, they are divorcing, they are divorced. So I'm asking myself to say, if I marry this beautiful girl here and we divorce, it looks like where we are, it's better. We can manage it. But for us to cross the line and we get married, we might not, make it.
I think that fear, is it coming from the stigma of a failed marriage? Like uh, when you wear the garments of being divorced, it's a very hard label to be put against.
Yep. And it's a reality, But with this gentleman, the case is that he had never been married before. You see, for somebody who has been married and got divorced, they haven't really, processed the divorce and everything that has happened. For them to move on and desire to remarry again, it might be a challenge, But for someone who hasn't married, it's a different story altogether. By literally looking at it, they're like, no, I don't want. I can't get there because the relationship will fail. So today we find ourselves in a scenario where not many people are really hopeful on the institution of marriage. People are looking at it, they're like, well, people are divorcing left, right, and center. So if we marry, we'll divorce again, just like another statistic. And you see that it's leading to the rise of many people that are thinking that you can cohabit as a substitute to marriage, to say, you know what, we can stay together. If we cross the line and get married, then, I was talking to this other couple.
Sure.
I mean, they have 3 children.
Okay.
3 children, their girlfriend and boyfriend. I'm like, you've been together for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Why are you not just calling each other husband and wife? They're like, oh, no, we can't. Yo, that's too deep. I'm like, you guys, what are you doing that I'm not doing, me and my wife?
Yeah, yeah, doing everything literally. Yeah.
But they're scared to just say, let's do the right thing. So you realize that people are, more and more people are being discouraged because probably some people have had a harsh past. They have seen, maybe it could be a lady, and then have seen men treating other women bad, maybe, or even was abused by a man and now doesn't desire.
Is there any spiritual cause for that?
Is there any spiritual
cause for people being happy with cohabiting but afraid of marriage?
As in, like,
As in spiritually, is
is an effect or a reason?
not a reason which is caused spiritually on the bad side of things, because if someone is comfortable of, like you're saying, 7 years, and when you mention marriage, they say no, but what you're doing is equivalent to what a married couple is. So I just wanted to ask if maybe do you assume that there's any spiritual reason for that?
Any spiritual reasons why people wouldn't want to get married?
Yeah.
I don't see any spiritual reason why people wouldn't want to get married. There are spiritual reasons why people should get married. Number one, to do things right. You see, if you are not married and you're having a sexual relationship, it's different. It's a type of a relationship that's not recognized in the Bible. In fact, it's recognized, but it's recognized as immorality or living in sin. You see, so that's not a good relationship to be. But when you look at it as well, you realize that in today's world, it's very easy to get married. It's not about money. Of course, we can talk about the lobola and all of that stuff. But, I mean, most of the times, if you are able to, to stay with somebody, you should be able to have money a little bit, to take to their parents and see what you can do. Or you can go to court. I mean, it doesn't cost much.
Just quickly go to Home Affairs, yeah?
Yeah, just go to Home Affairs and get it done. And you're married. As long as you're recognized as married, or go to a pastor and just say, Pastor, look, we want to do this thing. We don't want to, and Pastor will bless you, and you're married already, and you start recognizing as married, and that changes everything spiritually, you see. But as long as you are not married and you're having a sexual relationship, it's not going to be well.
Is it okay if we maybe just delve into that? Like, what are the effects of delving into? Because sometimes sex out of marriage, it's being put out there as do it without having to, as long as you do it responsibly. I actually had a counseling psychologist. We're talking about he's basically Pastor Luyanda.
Yeah.
So we're just talking about condomizing and all those stuff. But though we were talking about that, we're talking about in terms of on a neutral point of view, without having to infuse our Christian views, right? So maybe I feel like it's something that we would maybe, if we were to put this highlight what actually happens when you are having sex out of marriage, or whether you call it fornicating or living in sin, what are the ramifications of actually doing it, and just bring it on the spiritual side of it, because I feel like that would also be a nice thing to kind of like educate someone, because sometimes people, I am on Twitter, so what happens is some other people know, and they start making fun of the reasons that we have already given. Like, for example, you would say that when you have sex, you are you are your spirits are being mixed up together, right? You're becoming one. So they would make fun of that scenario, and you realize that these people, as much as they know the truth, some of them, but they still make fun of it. But maybe someone still doesn't know the extent. So I feel like maybe if you want to
We
go
should talk.
into detail on that.
We can, 100%. So you see, the fact that many people are doing something doesn't mean that it's acceptable. And the fact that, and the reason why, when you mention words like fornicating or living in sin or adultery, people already start feel like, but you're judging me, you know. But it's not to speak from a point of saying that we're judging what people are doing, but we're saying that know the truth. And if you and make a decision out of the truth, and that's the truth in God's word, and that truth doesn't change. And whether it was 200 years ago, where there was no this sexual revolution, and now there's, everybody's open to talk about sex and all of this, so there are still people that are choosing to do it the right way. And I think it's one of the mistakes that people make whilst they are in a relationship or dating, or beloveds, or whilst people are engaged. That phase, whether you call it courting or whatever, before people get married, whilst they're getting to know each other, I think it's one of the mistakes that people make, to introduce sex into the relationship. There are many spiritual issues to that, and there are also physical issues to that. One of the issues is that it's very easy for you to pull out of a relationship that you have not introduced sex. It's very simple to pull out of a relationship that you have not introduced sex. But the moment you introduce sex into a relationship, it bonds you together. And because of that, you will realize that it's hard for you to leave this person, no matter how many bad things you start seeing, within that person. Let's say, for instance, you were cohabiting, and it's difficult for you to leave that person because you've introduced this, and there's now emotional entanglements. That whole story. It's not a simple decision to leave a person that you have been having sex with than to leave a person that you have not had sex with, and you were walking together with a dream to get married. And you notice that, this person is not changing. This person is going like this. You easily can walk away freely, But if you have introduced sex in it, that decision is not simple. It's not easy. So that's one of the main causes why people still get married to people that they see that this is like a person is not changing. A person is cheating on you, but you still, want to get married. A person is probably abusing you, but you still can't leave the person. You look at some people, they're having problems when they are married, but those problems didn't start when they were married, So if you had not introduced sex in the relationship, you would objectively think and you would look at what issues as they are. Is it solvable? Is it not solvable? How do we fix it? Can we overcome it together? Can we walk through together? Okay, let me be patient more. You can do all of that without having any. But the moment you introduce sex, you're now looking at it differently. So it makes life very easy for you if a person just decides to leave it. And number two, it's for your good to experience sex when you are now married than before. I always use Prophet Makandiwa as example. These are the same one he was mentioning to say that if somebody was to accuse me of cheating or sleeping around, or even if it's rape or whatever it is, anything to do with sexual issues, he was mentioning that his wife would be the last person to believe that. Of all the people, my wife would be the last person. Now when you look at it, you're like, how many men can safely say that? The reason why he was saying that is because when they got married, they had not done it. And after the wedding day, they were supposed to go for honeymoon. And their honeymoon got delayed because of some, transport logistics. And they spent some few days before going for honeymoon. And he made a decision to say, we're not going to have sex until we get to our honeymoon. So his wife could see him making such a decision, and that showed a lot of self-control. To say, I can control myself with what I'm allowed, which means I can easily control myself with what I'm not even allowed. It's easy.
Yeah.
You see. But if you can't control yourself at all, you will realize that because you're having sex with this person, you'll be surprised that trust levels are very low. Especially, you see, it always plays for the bad to the lady most of the times. That's why ladies should be the ones at the forefront of saying no, to any sexual advances from men, because you're the one who gets pregnant, you're the one who carries consequences into the front, you're the one who will receive the sperm, you're the one on the receiving end. The guy can easily just walk away. And also now, when, let's say for instance, you were not in a relationship, I've always had questions from ladies asking to say, well, this relationship started like this, it was a one night stand, but I now want it to be a serious thing, but it seems like it can't, you see. And that guy is not going to see you as marriage material, because the fact that you had sex with him at that stage, he thinks you are loose.
Probably you do it with someone else.
He thinks you go around and you do it, right? And he sees it as a bad person, but he also did the same with you. But to him, he doesn't think it was bad, you see. And there's a problem already right there. So as a lady, you ought to learn to say no and preserve it for marriage, and say, look, I would like to work with you as we go into marriage, but sex is off the table. I want to know you as a person before we can add many other things into the process. And also just get married quickly. You don't have to spend 6 months.
That's where I wanted to go.
15 months, 5 years, 2 years getting to know a person. 6 months should be good enough time for you to make a decision to marry a person. Within 12 months, you should be married. That's enough time for you to, to manage. But if you want to make the process long and the time longer, then that's where issues will come in the process. Yeah. So spiritually, though, consequences to having sex. You see, sex for married people is beautiful. When you're having sex with your wife, well, I remember when you got married with my wife, and
yeah,
I was playing Hillsong, and we were about to have sex, and she switches it off. I'm like, I'm worshiping. Why are you switching my songs off? It's just like, no, we can't. We can't have sex with you.
It's not a worship
You know,
section.
we can't have sex with you.
Sure.
I'm like, I was actually worshiping and having fun, and that is just before sex.
Yeah.
And most of the times after having sex, I even go to my study and pray or study, and all of that. Beautiful. And it's amazing like that. But for people that are not married, it's a different story. You can't just come from that bed and you go into your prayer room. You can't. Why?
true.
Because you know that what you were doing was not supposed to be happening.
Yeah.
Right. So people need to understand. I think we should have had a session and just title it maybe Sex for Singles.
Oh,
And
yes.
just talk about sex.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking that if I now wanna,
Let's get into it,
then
Pastor.
I look at you.
I don't have a problem. Because I think what it's doing, right, is it's building up to what you were saying in the beginning. Because I don't want to lose that train of thought. You're saying that at first you're talking about why you love doing this, right? And you're doing this, and it's a beautiful thing for you to see couples coming not knowing anything, right? And I feel like as cheaply as sex is being talked about, whether it be on social media or on TVs, it might as well be something that we can talk about now, because even the people who, let's say, be taking it down, maybe in high school, even the ones who are abstaining, chances some of them, they don't have a solid reason why they're abstaining. They just know that, okay, I was just told that don't do this at home. Wait until you're married. But I feel like if we chop it down and come up with all these scenarios and the ramifications of all that, it can be giving someone solid reasons to kind of like sit down on that.
Hold on.
Yes. So feel free, sir.
All right. Beautiful.
Yeah.
There are many reasons why people should leave sex alone until they are married.
Okay.
I think one of the most important one is that couples who have sex before marriage or cohabit before marriage, they have a 30% less shot at a successful marriage. They're 30% more likely to divorce than couples who actually waited until marriage. So you realize that it has a lot of ripple effects. Number one is trust. You see, you beloveds, you're courting, you're dating, and you know there is no commitment, and you're having sex. Chances are you can easily feel like your partner could be doing it elsewhere, or could be doing it with someone. And even when you are married, and because you know that your partner can keep their zip up, they couldn't even keep it up during that time, and now you're here. If you see your partner with some work colleagues, you're like, what? No. You already have insecurities, and because you yourself, you don't have self-control, so you think other people also. And also you saw that your partner doesn't have self-control, so you don't trust them with other people of the opposite sex. And the moment you have compromised, your trust is compromised in a relationship, it's going to take a lot for that relationship to really stand, right? So that's something to fight for, to say, look, whatever it is, my next relationship, we're going to have, this, we're not going to add it to as part of the bargain. There are things that, you see, let's say, for instance, you are cooking. What example can I give?
Cake or lasagna.
Oops, I don't know how to cook
Pap.
lasagna. pap.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about pap. Maybe. Hey, it seems like I haven't been in the kitchen for a while.
You're a married man. You're a married man.
Nah, it's just that we don't
let's
we
let,
don't we don't cook pap that
let's
often with my
let's
wife.
make
So I'm
eggs.
looking at it. Cool. So you see, life happens in processes.
Okay.
There are stages that you shouldn't skip, and there are things that you are supposed to enjoy in the future that you shouldn't enjoy today. And literally, sex is one of them. The difference, what makes good sex and bad sex, is one thing: timing. The one is done before marriage, and the other one is done after marriage.
Right.
But other than that, it's sex, right? But that line, the moment you cross it, it opens up. It makes a decision on what potentials or what consequences come after that, the moment you have opened it like that. So when you look at what is happening today, people are saying, well, let's be open and talking about sex and all of that. It's previously in the olden days, it's not like people were not talking about sex. There were actually schools where they used to teach women, used to teach men to say this is sex, this is how the positions and all of that.
Yeah.
It's just that today we now have them in a book, but previously they knew how to draw them on the sand because they didn't have,
Sure.
and there were schools for that, but that information was not given to young kids. It was given to mature people who are now ready for marriage.
Okay.
Because, I mean, now you realize that our kids are being given that information at 9, 10. I mean, what are you going to do with all that information until you get to the day that you get married? You see? So it's all about the media and how it's propelling that. There's right here, there's a car sale here. I was driving past, and I saw a picture of a naked woman
Okay.
advertising
Oh,
cars.
cars.
I'm like,
Sure.
wow, how does it? Why would she? Why?
She's not even a mechanic, sir.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would you be doing that? So you realize that almost everywhere where you go, there's something that is always being aimed at speaking at your sexual senses, right? But as a person, you have to make a decision. You see, and the decision that you make it out of what you know. Most people think that to know about sex is to know about sex styles. It's to know about how long should a man last and how,
Orgasms.
all of those orgasms, and you know that is the elementary, like the surface level knowledge about sex.
Sure.
You see, but the real story behind sex is that God created it. Number one, you see, the one who created something is the best person to advise you on how to use it. And when God created it, He knew that sex is the only way that He's going to send people to earth.
Yeah.
So you realize that actually people have to have sex for somebody to come to earth from heaven. And when that process happens, God is interested in it, 100% fully invested in it. That's how He said, be fruitful and multiply. He knew that, well, even in this, multiplying in numbers, we have to, So God is interested in sex in such a way that there is a guy in the Bible. His name is called Onan. He was killed because he was having sex with his brother's wife, and when it was time for him to ejaculate, he would pull out.
Yeah.
We call it the withdrawal method for contraception. That was the method they used to use in the past, the withdrawal method. Then you realize that this guy was killed on the act of sex. How did that happen for him to be killed? And God is watching him whilst he is having sex, right? And
Genesis
that's
30
how
Genesis chapter 38.
Genesis chapter 38.
Yeah.
Cool. You want to read it?
Yes, please. I can read it.
Cool.
Just give me a
I
moment.
think just one or two of the verses about
Yes.
the guy. So God is fully invested in sex. Why? Because that's the way that He brings His people and He multiplies the human race. And there's no any other way to multiply the human race apart from a man and a woman coming together. So when you look at it, you realize that God is fully invested in sex more than many other things. God is fully, even when you look at it, the genealogy of Jesus Christ, and He still had to. God was involved in the whole process.
Yeah.
How He had to choose the Virgin Mary, and that speaks into the whole sexual story, and Joseph being part of the lineage, and Joseph not having sex with Mary up until. So when you look at it, you realize that God has carefully orchestrated everything, and according to its time, sex is supposed to be in the play, but before its time, you are supposed to keep it for tomorrow, and not to try and bring it into today, because that is literally what spoils. So the guy died.
Yeah. Genesis chapter 38 verses. I'll start from 9, and then the verse we're looking for is in 10. It says, but Onan was willing to have a child, was not willing to have a child who could not be his own heir. So whenever he had intercourse with his brother's wife, he spilled the semen on the ground, which is the withdrawal you're talking about. This prevented her from having a child who would belong to his brother. But the Lord, this is verse 10, but the Lord considered it evil for Onan to deny a child to his dead brother. So the Lord took his life too.
You see, why he died is how he was having sex. That is how he died. How he was having sex. So you realize that God is actually interested in the whole process about sex.
Does that mean that as married men and women, we ought to have good sex?
We should have good sex. Beautiful sex, amazing sex. Sex
Okay,
is so good.
Sorry to change the topic. It was just interesting to read.
I would recommend, there's a book called Intended for Pleasure.
Okay.
I would recommend that to your listeners.
Okay.
They should
Intended
go
for
look the
Pleasure.
book.
Okay.
They should look. I think most bookstores have it. You can just check online. Intended for Pleasure, you will see it. It's a beautiful book. Has got good principles and good boundaries on sex and all of that stuff, which is beautiful.
Is it the author Edwit?
Yeah. Yes. That's Intended for Pleasure. So it's a very good book. So you realize that God is fully invested in sex, 100%. And so every time a man and a woman come together and they are having sex, husband and wife, there's an angel that is. Angels are always there. Angels. You have an angel. I have an angel.
Yeah.
At least every person has one angel. At least one angel. Then depending on how you are walking and serving in your purpose, then more angels are assigned to you. Right. So you realize that when you're having sex, it's not just about double locking your room, so that you can have sex and no one is watching. God is watching, So what you understand about sex is important and determines and influences the decisions that you will make about sex. Right. So,
I got it from script.
oh, that's the book.
They even have an audio book.
Beautiful. You'll be blessed with that. So when you look at it, you realize that God is there. The moment you start having that consciousness to say, if God is there and is fully invested in it, I better do it the right way.
Yeah.
Right. Not doing it the right way has many consequences. You realize that what God is much interested in, also the devil is also interested in corrupting that. You see, that's why the devil always wants to mess up with the human race, because God is fully invested in us. That's why the devil wants to reduce us and make sure that we never live our full potential, and reduce us to literally nothing. To reduce us to, I watched a video of a guy. He was drinking and got drunk and couldn't walk, and was falling left and was falling in water. I'm like, wow, look at how God's creation is being reduced to nothing.
Yeah, sure.
You see, that is what the devil wants to do to every human being if he could, But God wants us to live a blissful life. In the word he says, I've come to give you life, and life so much in abundance,
yeah.
And that's what God wants. So when you see God saying, this line, do not cross it, it's not because he's trying to keep you from pleasure. He's actually trying to save you so that you can have the best pleasure when the time comes. You see, it's very hard for many people. I counsel a lot of young couples, and if I had not counseled them on premarital counseling, and I'm now working with them in marriage, you realize that most of their sexual problems and insecurities are because of the sex that happened before marriage.
Yeah.
And the lady's like, well, he doesn't do it very well. Okay, he doesn't do it very well according to, you see, if you both are getting married and you don't know how it is and what it is, you learn and you teach each other in the process. But if you have already been with somebody that knows how to do
the helicopter
style, I still have to figure out what helicopter style is.
Sure.
You see, and now you're with someone who is doing the helicopter stuff, and now you realize that this guy, all he knows is missionary, and you're like, Charlie, what's wrong with you? Why? Right? You see, but it's a very interesting story, and sometimes you realize that now that you're married, I've had questions. I've seen guys asking questions like, I think she's not enjoying sex with me than she enjoyed in the past with others, because the way she used to talk about it and now how we experience it, it's different.
Yeah.
Now the guy is thinking maybe he's inadequate. Maybe, what is the issue?
So he's becoming insecure as well.
Very insecure, you see. And the same with the ladies as well. So when you look at it, you realize that you are causing many troubles in your tomorrow because of the sex that you are having today. And then going back to the spiritual reasons, you see, good sex, when you're having it, like I was telling you to say, I was actually worshiping, and then she had to switch off my thingy. You see, good sex, the presence of the Lord is with you, and the angels are there. It's a beautiful thing, happy, and literally there even to protect, and even in what you are doing, make sure that the devil doesn't mess up, anything, right? But the moment you start having sex with someone, and you have crossed the line, you're on the other side, right? You realize that you have stepped out of the boundary for protection for yourself, and now the devil has access to you, right? So even no matter how many times or how many people or even how many likes people online can make fun of you explaining about soul ties, that stuff is real. 100% real. It doesn't change the fact that it's real. It doesn't change the fact that it's true. No matter how many times people can make jokes about it or ridicule it or think, the consequences are there. To every action,
there are consequences for it.
You get it? Right. So we cannot be a generation that is fooled by a TikTok meme, a TikTok, Instagram memes talking about what, and you believe memes. No, we won't do that, right? So when you look at it, you realize that when you are outside of the bounds, literally demons have access to you, unrestricted access. And that's where people pick up many things, sicknesses, you realize that if you are having sex with somebody who has issues with lust, from that day on, you will not understand how lust has gotten to you. Why? Because you have joined yourself together. You know, if you join yourself to a harlot, you become one
With a harlot, yeah.
you know that's literally what happens. So you realize that now you had sex with this person, and now everything that was against this person and spiritually, now that stuff easily has access to you as well. Because I'll give you an example. There's a lady who went through a deliverance session, and then as she was delivered, now she started
Manifesting.
confessing what she used to do,
Okay.
and how she used to, to make a difference in the kingdom of darkness.
Yeah.
And she was like, look, with people, it's hard to access them, especially a person who is born again.
Okay.
Obviously, they don't have any business to access people that are not born again, because they are already, in the same kingdom. But these are Christians. It's like it's hard to access them. Why? Because they are protected. And the only way we could do that, the only way we could destroy a person and enter and have access into their life, was through sex. So I would be told by my handler, it's kind of like a handler, like a demons.
Sure.
They would tell her, look, wake up, dress like this. Even in the afternoon, just go out of the house, wear that dress, and go to the street. There's a guy like this, just stay there. Someone will pass by and greet you. And when they greet, and already she knew the whole mathematics.
Yeah.
And all she was doing was to sleep with people that were Christians, obviously. She wanted to sleep with Christians because that was the target, So when you are busy having sex around, not married, sometimes you don't know that you're actually the target, You think we having a one night stand, we had
Sure.
a good thing.
Sure.
But the other person knows that you actually
They're on a
the
mission.
target.
Yeah.
You were on a mission accomplished.
Yeah.
And she said something very interesting to say. When she was having sex with the person, so the mission was never complete until she had sex with the person, because she never had full access into the person's life.
I see.
Until she had sex with the person. So now when she was having sex with the person, she would now be talking to her demons and telling them, okay, the demon of lust, you can enter. The demon of poverty, you can steal. You can take all his money. You can destroy his marriage. You can do whatever, And depending on what she wanted, that is what would happen to that person.
Yeah.
Why? Because she has the full access. All of these things wouldn't happen on day number one. It's things that would start happening gradually. 2 months, 3 months, a year down the line, you realize, what's happening? It was because of that act that happened so many months ago. So when you look at it, you realize that you literally would be giving access to the devil into your life through sex. And that's the problem with doing it illegally. I have seen cases of people that used condoms, but they still got HIV, and they wonder to say, but how? How did I get HIV? It was never supposed to be.
Sure.
Why? Because diseases are spiritual. So a plastic will not really protect you 100%, from all of that stuff. So when you're looking at it, you realize that you will be heaping up problem for yourself by engaging in that. But the correct sex, it opens up opportunities for intimacy, endless opportunities to know your wife, to know your partner, draws you closer. It's the only thing that you can share with someone and never have to share it with anyone else. Every other relationship that you have with everyone, even your mother, your father, you realize that they have got limits. and they've got boundaries where they can't be crossed. But your relationship with your spouse, you realize that it gets to the end where there is no boundaries at all. And all of the other people, that is why when people get married, they do not join a family, but they start their own new family.
Their own new family, yeah.
You get it? Why? Because that is the power of sex. That is what happens. And
I just have another question on that, right? Since we're still on sex, right? Let's say this is a couple who are faithful in not having sex, but one of the partners or both of them secretly are indulging in porn. How does that now? Because you can say that I'm not doing anything or I am waiting, because you can tell yourself that. So how does that also contaminate? Or if I don't wanna put my own words.
but there's no any other way to describe it.
Sure.
So
How does that affect whether it be a couple? I think it would be best to be a couple, but also even when you're single, to indulge in that, whether it be ending up in masturbation or not. How does that also affect bringing into the sex conversation?
many times, many people, even people who ask those questions, they already know that it's wrong, but they're looking for another voice that can try to make them feel good.
Sure.
And the best would not be to try and feel good, but the best would be to try and fix the problem.
Okay.
So that you're actually very good. You see, porn creates problems. So many problems. You see, okay, where do I start? Spiritually, physically. Spiritually, you're literally entering into a territory that you have no business being into. The production of porn. You see, there's a teaching that was done by some pastor some years ago called The Spirit Behind Hip Hop.
Okay.
And I think I watched it with some friends. I think we were in college, still at that time, and that really spoke a lot, into the whole story about media, touching music videos, movies, everything. To say this, the person who produces the content, whatever they produce, it carries their spirit with them, and that portion of their spirit is imparted on everybody that comes in contact with that. Right? So it's like I'm drenched in diesel, and you just touch me like this, you will also have, and everybody that is around me will be smelling it. It causes an effect.
Very strong smell.
It causes an effect, and if you touch me, it's even worse. You now also have it. You can also touch another person with it, and that person also has. You see, that's the effect of what we produce as human beings. We should stop living as if the physical is the it of life. The spiritual is actually the real deal about life. You see? So when you look at it, you realize that there's nothing Christ-like. The moment you cross that and you go into porn and all of that stuff. And the fact that it's not, it means it's destructive in every way. It's destructive. Number one, to your brain. It dulls your mind from thinking. Number two, it's something that you are not even comfortable to say that, I do this. How many people have you ever had, say that, I do this? No, people don't come up with it because it's not a good thing to even be coming out with, right? There's no lessons that you learn from people that are acting. It's literally an act that they are doing, and they don't show you how many times. Now you come out of that and you're like, so for you to have sex with a woman, you should last for 2 hours. because you watched a 2-hour video. I mean, 2 hours. I'm looking at my day. I don't really have 2 hours, you know, just for sex. Now you start feeling like, okay, the guys that I was seeing in porn, all of them were lasting for 2 hours. My man only lasts 5 minutes or 20 minutes. What's wrong with him? Something is
Yeah.
wrong. Now you start looking for things that are not there. You go on a quest to look for a man who lasts 2 hours. Or you saw a penis somewhere there that was like this bottle here. Unfortunately, your visitors can't, your listeners can't see it.
And then they know the Aquila.
You know,
Aquila.
and yeah, like in Aquila water bottle,
Yes.
and now you get married and you look at your husband, you're like, what, you see, I've been seeing the memes that are saying what I bought versus what I got or something like that.
Yeah.
What I thought I was getting it versus what I
Sure,
got.
sure.
And then now you're looking, you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
And simply because those are actors and professionals who have been going through training and doing all of that stuff to make themselves competitive in the industry, because it's an industry.
I like when you say these are actors,
It's actors,
professionals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who, it's not like they just go around by the street. They're like, hey, do you want to come and act porn? No. They go through maybe interviews and then they do a selection criteria. They hire you and then you go through periods of orientation and training, you see, and all of that. So all of that stuff is meant for acting so that they can entertain people. You see, it's just like your normal TV drama, like Generations or The Legacy.
Yeah.
Those guys, they practice and rehearse so many hours. It's a full-time job that a person is doing so that they can just produce one episode that has got 40 minutes.
Yeah.
You see? So when you look at it, now you have seen all of that stuff and you're coming home, you're expecting your wife to be swinging herself on a pole because you saw pole dancers doing some stuff and you're expecting your wife to, it's not real. It's completely detached from reality. So the moment you go into that, you're going to struggle to come back to reality. Why? Because you have been living in a world that's not there. And you are being conditioned to think that every woman should have, boobs that are like this and hips that are like this. Every man should be like this and do you like this. Now you get married to a guy who has his own
Maximum of three styles.
and you have been thinking that this is the story. So you would do better to erase all of that so that you enter marriage with a clean slate and not expecting many things that are unreal. You see, that is very important, especially on your mindset and what to expect in marriage, because you'll be disappointed to say, my wife doesn't cry like people in porn. Well, I mean, even where you stay, there are people that are married. You don't even hear anyone crying there. So why do you expect them to do like in porn? Because those guys have conditioned their environments to do all of that.
Yeah.
You see, so it's an unreal environment, and doing that will literally affect you in your tomorrow, because you have different expectations that cannot be met by anyone who is not a porn star. So if you're looking at that, your set expectations would definitely be met, but you would have to find a porn star to meet those expectations and marry one of them. And you'll be surprised you don't want to marry one of them as well. But you want your normal spouse to do like one of them. It doesn't work. You see?
Yeah.
It won't work. So a person would do better by staying in touch with reality and moving away from that fantasy world. There's no lessons that you can learn in porn and bring into your marriage and think that they will work. God gave you a mind that is creative. You can produce, whatever that you think you were going to learn in porn. Do you have a good mind?
Yeah. I feel like shouting out that book again, Intended for Pleasure.
Intended for Pleasure. It's solid. It's a little bit complicated these days. To find books that speak about sex in a clean way is one of the books that speak about sex in a very clean way.
Yeah.
And talks to you about things that are clean. And I mean, today, if you get an average book that is talking about sex, it will start talking about anal sex and all of these other funny things. When you look at it, you realize that you're complicating your world away from the natural use of a woman and the natural use of a man.
Yeah.
It's different.
Wow. And then I know there's some few stuff that you also want to talk about there.
Well, I think we've been going on
Yes.
and on. I think people should be very hopeful that marriage is beautiful. You will find a good person, whether you have been divorced or whether you've had failed relationships in the past. It's not a reason for you to give up on love and marriage. What you would rather do is to sit back and learn lessons from what has happened in the past. Find help, seek help, learn how to do it better the next time, and then you will win. So I think people shouldn't give up on, especially women. Women giving up and compromising is not the way to go. You know very well what you want, and you know that marriage is a good thing. You have no reason to compromise. You have no reason to. So whilst it is time, you get a proposal, accept and move on. If the relationship is not working, evaluate. Look at it. Have you invested what you were supposed to invest? Have they done it? Did you get help from somebody, counseling and all of that? And if it's not really working, then you don't have to go 5 years to figure out that it's not working. You can make a call whilst it's still early. And if you're in a relationship, the best thing you could do for yourself is to prepare for the future. And you don't prepare for the future by doing a wedding and wedding plans and setting dates and doing shopping. And that's not how you prepare for the future. You prepare for the future by building understanding for that future, and that is very important. And building your knowledge and your wisdom towards the future, so that when you are in that future, you know how to maintain the future and enjoy, life in the future. Those that are married, I think marriage is an amazing thing. So I don't see any reason why people should argue and fight in marriage. You can literally have a marriage that never has any arguments, that never has any fights, where you will never experience, any issues, the two of you. I always tell people that I counsel that problems that you face in marriage should be problems that are coming from the outside, not within. The two of you should grow in your wisdom to know how to deal with your environment and circumstances so that you're in control. And then things that come from the outside, those are not marriage problems, those are life issues.
Okay.
You see, it's different, right? But if you have not grown wisdom to make marriage work for the two of you, you realize that even life issues that come, they become life problems. They become marital problems. And marital problems become life becomes very complicated. So instead of doing marriage and having issues, aim to have a marriage that is blissful. Aim to have a marriage that is beautiful. Aim to have a marriage that when people look at it, they will see hope in marriage.
I think the other thing that I want to ask with what you said now is building wisdom. How does a couple, whether it be married or deciding to getting married, how do they build wisdom? Because I think I like the fact that you said that there's internal problems and there's external problems, and you labeled internal problem as marital issues, but external is not marital issues.
They're not marital issues.
So how do we, as a couple, build wisdom to be competent enough to
do marriage.
do marriage? Yeah.
Beautiful. There's many ways to learn. You could choose to learn with experience, but experience is like experimenting with your life so that you can learn something. That's the slowest way of learning in life, where you have to experience something for you to know that this is the correct way, this is the right way. You know, the best way to learn is to learn from others. You know, instead of trying to figure out how to invent a wheel and build your own road, there are others who have built their roads. If you walk in it, you will get there quicker and faster because you are building on someone else's foundation and standing on the shoulders of someone else. I realized that when I started reading books about marriage, even when I was not married, I knew how things happen in marriage and even how to advise people that were married about marriage before I was married myself.
Yeah.
Why? Because I stood on the shoulders of those that have seen far, and I could also see far with them. For example, you read a book by Dr. Gary Chapman. He spent 30 years, more than 30 years, counseling couples, doing research about, love, marriage, life, and all of that. If you read his book, 5 Love Languages, that it took him so much amount of time to come up with that, traveling into different countries, figuring it out, until he came up with the book and the wisdom in his book. If you read the book and you master the book, you realize that your experience and your knowledge in marriage and love is no longer the same as the duration of your relationship or your relationships combined. But it's now at par with what Dr. Gary Chapman knows when he got to his 35 years, of working with couples and all of that. That's the beauty of it. And then you add another person. Let's say, for instance, you add Dr. Gottman. He wrote one of the most powerful books I recommend to couples called The 7 Principles to Make Marriage Work. It's an amazing book. You read that book. They did an experiment over 2 decades, experimenting on couples. Literally, someone dedicated their life so that they could be able to figure out to say what makes marriage to work and what makes it not to work. So if you amass that wisdom, you'll be surprised at how much you know. You see, so you are a 25-year-old person, but you have read these 2 books and many other books. You realize that your knowledge and wisdom and understanding of marriage is not of a 25-year-old, but it's of all of these people that you have learned from combined. That makes you invincible. That makes you a superhero in marriage. You can easily tackle any challenge that comes your way with ease. With my wife, we're navigating through a very interesting season where we have to, switch countries and all of that. And other couples, it could be the end of a marriage, literally going through that, even just to come to a decision to say this, you see. But with my wife, we have gone through the process of talking, discussing, deciding, and all of that. And right now where we are, everything that has come our way, we are holding each other's hand and walking together forward. But it would be a different experience if she was pulling on her own side, I'm pulling on the other side. You'd easily feel like you're alone. Why? Because you lack wisdom on how to walk together through life. So you realize that in life, there will be life challenges and problems that will be thrown at your way. But the strength of your marriage is determined by your foundation, and how it stands is because of your foundation, not on how the issues that are coming your way are. So when you look at it, you realize that a solid foundation, which is the most important part, is built by what you know. How much do you know about love? How much do you know about marriage? How much do you know about men, about women? How much do you know about women? Do you understand how to communicate with women, with men? How do you see, how much you know about those subjects is what determines whether your life in marriage will be good or bad. So what you know is critical, and you don't have to learn it from your experiences. Now you're looking at it, you're like, wow. So that my relationship with John actually broke because I was not disrespecting him. Or now you look at it, you're like, wow, my relationship with Sally broke because I was not, taking her out. I was not doing this. I was not. You can't learn like that.
Yeah.
You will miss other opportunities. I was telling, there's a lady that I was having a conversation with, and I'm like, okay, she just had a number of questions for me, and I asked her a question. I'm like, when last did, or how often do guys propose you? Maybe in a year. She's like, well, maybe one or none. I'm like, well,
In a year.
yeah. And then I'm like, well, this is kind of like someone at least who could be a potential, at least. I'm like, okay, cool. If it is the case, maybe one or none. Look at how your life is at the mercy of what you know. The one person who comes to you, you either have the wisdom to make it work or the wisdom to not make it work. If it doesn't work, it means the other person might come after 2 years. And look at the amount of time that you have put on your singleness, yet you want to get married. And the reason why I was taking it through this journey is because she is not investing in herself in preparation for tomorrow. She wants to prepare and learn about relationships when she's in a relationship. I'm like, well, look, you that's not the right time for you to learn about relationships when you're already in a relationship.
Yeah.
Because you're now expected to perform. And because of your underperformance, the guy will walk away. And then now you're back again to zero. So at your pace and at your rate, you should be learning very well and very fast to be a guru, so that the next opportunity results in marriage. And it's not because of luck. It's not because of anything. It's because of what you know. You'll be surprised that it's not the most beautiful girls that get married.
That's
It's
true.
not the most handsome guys that marry the good girls. It's literally somebody whom someone feels comfortable to say, you know what, I think we can actually do marriage with this person. And much of that is determined by how much you know about life and marriage, which is manifested in how you treat your spouse. You see, the fact that you don't know anything about marriage or relationships, we don't have to know about it, by you not getting married. We see it by, how you treat people. I was telling some ladies at a time to say, even how you talk to other men, another guy might be watching and is interested.
Yeah.
But now, because this boy, he just passed you and he stepped on your nice stilettos and you shouted at him very nicely.
Do you know how
and
much
you
they are?
put him in his place. Now another guy was listening and he's like, what? So you have a potential to say all of this stuff. Already you are missing out on the opportunities that you could have been grabbing along the way.
Yeah.
So basically, when you look at it, you realize that wisdom, knowledge, and understanding is very critical. And the best place to get it is before it's demanded of you. When you're in a relationship, you are now demanded of wisdom that maintains a relationship.
Yeah.
And God grows a relationship into a marriage. When you are single, wisdom that is demanded of you is wisdom that gets you into a relationship. you know. And when you are married, wisdom that's demanded of you is wisdom on how to make your marriage a success. So you can't now want to learn about marriage when you're now in marriage. You should prepare now so that when you get there, you don't make mistakes that are costly, and you stay there for good, not to come back again to the singles club.
Um, how about those who are already in a relationship and they're saying that, wow, Pastor, I think I didn't go to my wisdom school. How do I recover from that?
Start today. Go to your wisdom school today.
So you can actually recover from that.
You can recover.
Okay.
Every relationship can recover, and the wounds can heal. The only issue is that you would have to deal with scars. You see, scars will always be there, just like a normal wound. When you get a wound, it shows that you were through something, and a scar will be there as a reminder of the days that you lacked wisdom and you suffered, and your relationship was always going up and down, up and down. But if you get wisdom today, you realize that all those wounds will heal, they will become scars, and over time, some scars will disappear, and you will never remember, and you actually wonder, we used to argue. What were we arguing, by the way?
Sure.
5 years down the line, you're like, but what was happening in those days? What was the issue? You literally can do that.
Yeah.
You know. So you're in a relationship. You find yourself in a relationship right now. One of the best deceptions that will happen to you is thinking that you are fine today, so you'll always be fine tomorrow. Forgetting that what makes you fine today doesn't guarantee you being fine tomorrow. So get wisdom for tomorrow. You know, if you're seeing happy days today, that's the best time to learn and be prepared for your tomorrow. So at whatever level that you are in, it's never too late to start learning and changing something, learning and doing things better. It will never be too late.
Beautiful. I know we still have a lot to talk about. Yes, like less than an extra hour.
I hold my peace.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure that we, even before we close this, that we have talked about everything, right? We talked about.
We can talk about everything.
Yeah, we must try to push as many. So I think we touched on. I think one of the big takeaways was the sex part, and now we talked about how to set yourself up for marriage and not to give up. That's the one thing that is that we should not give up on marriage, or don't give up, especially if you have been faithfully waiting and expecting your God-ordained spouse. We must not give up, and I like the points that you also gave through that, especially for the one for women now, so that gauge how many times people are coming, and just work on your on getting wisdom to maintain that.
And that shouldn't puff you up if you get many proposals. And even if you are not getting many proposals, you don't need many proposals. What you need is one marriage. One marriage will come with one person. So that's why I'm saying that one person that comes is your marriage. Marriage can come. I know people who have dated one person, and that one person became the spouse.
The spouse, yeah.
So you don't have to have many trials in any place. Just get wisdom that will make your next relationship the right one. That's all. That's all.
I think, Pastor, to conclude this, right? There are things that I wanted to get out of this conversation, which is how to. But I think you actually touched on them. I think if asking them, it will just be us using the same information that you've already shared. Because the one thing was there is a pandemic of the Mjolo uzokuherda, right?
And it's true.
People are going through fire and flames out there, right? Um, for me, it was just the biggest questions was how do you maybe you can even answer it in one go, right? So the biggest questions that I had now was how do I set myself up for a relationship? How do I maintain the relationship? And then how do we, after being in a relationship, and then how do we prepare ourselves to get into a marriage? And then maybe we can just finish up that way so that at least someone who is listening to this, who's going through the most, can say hi. Like you were saying that you must not give up, but just give us that preparation. I know you have talked about most of the stuff, but I just want you to just talk about those things as well.
Beautiful. So, how do you set yourself up for a good relationship? Um, your relationship becomes the foundation, becomes the a stepping stone into your marriage. So, the most important thing is to choose the right person, choosing the right spouse, choosing the right partner. That's the most important thing. You see, no matter how much you can no matter how much you can love a frog, it will always be a frog and do frog tendencies. You see, so if you marry a wrong person, no matter how much you do good and no matter how much you do, some things just will not change about that person.
Yeah.
So the decision on whom to marry is very important. There are things that you shouldn't compromise on, and number one is faith, religion.
Yeah.
You know, that shouldn't change. I know of a couple. I think right now they are now in their 50s, and the husband goes to his own church and the wife to her own church, and because the churches they believe completely different stuff altogether. Um, it's a complicated situation. So most of the problems that people face in marriage could literally be avoided by just choosing the right person.
Yeah.
You see, and the right person is not a person with the most money, and chances are maybe they don't even look like they have the money. I remember I had a conversation with some ladies,
Yeah.
um, you know, and I was just asking them. I'm like, because I saw that the lady is in waiting for the guy, but guys are coming, but she continues to wait. She's like, no, I'm waiting for the right person. I'm like, well, can you describe to me the right person?
Sure.
And she described the right person. Well, the right person is a person who can afford a very nice house for us to stay in. A right person would be a person who will be driving a Mercedes Benz, and has a career that is figured out. Income is not an issue, and very mature and can do this. And then she spoke the list. And then when she was done, I was like, well, that sounds like you describing pretty much where I am today. And she's like, yeah, you see, like where you are, it's very easy because, she's got it all figured out.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, you see, where I am right now, I'm already married. You see, chances are this guy that you are looking for is already married also. Why? Because
Yeah.
not many guys get to that level and they are still single because she's asking for too many things. You see, but do you have an eye that my wife had some years ago to see that this guy has a potential to be that thing that she wanted? And now she has the guy, she can be happy. But there's a day where I couldn't afford a train.
Yeah.
And I had to skip a train and know how the train guys work.
Sure.
And my wife was with me, and I remember at a time we were supposed to go out, and we only had money for, I didn't tell her actually that I didn't have the 15 rand to buy 2 tickets to go
tickets,
where
yeah.
we were going. So I bought one ticket and I gave her the ticket because the other money, and she didn't know. And and we went through, and then I used an old ticket to go and
Yeah.
get out of the station.
Sure.
And she didn't know about it. I'm like, well, look, man gotta do what he has to do to,
Yeah.
to push another day,
Sure. Sure.
But when she knew about it, she's like, she laughed about it.
Yeah.
So many days, even recently we were talking, we're like, you know what, I think it's about 3 months ago, we're like, let's take a taxi. I haven't been in a taxi in a while. Let's take a taxi. And recently we've been talking to say, you know what, we need to take a train.
Sure.
To take, because train
Yeah.
used to be the
Yeah.
only.
Yeah.
So, but now the life where she is now, where she can eat what she wants, she stays in a nice place, she drives a nice car, that's a different life altogether. It was not there in the past where I met her. So you realize that you will not really get a person that has everything that you are looking for in this life.
Yeah.
But you have to sit down and say, what are the critical things that I can't compromise on? And many other things we can work through them and develop each other and help each other to become better, for that tomorrow that you want. As long as you can see that and you have an eye that can see an opportunity to invest into someone to become something, then definitely you are on a good path. You see, so if you choose the right person, it means that the right person that you have chosen, because the person that you choose, it also means that you have chosen your strengths and your weaknesses. You have also chosen your problems and your successes.
Yeah.
You see, if you choose a person who is lazy, you've chosen a certain type of problems that are coming tomorrow.
Yeah.
You see, and if you choose a person
Who's a go-getter?
who's a go-getter, you've also chosen your own
Success
path.
and problems. Yeah.
Exactly. So that is how life works. So the choice that you make literally determines everything else that will happen along the way.
Yeah.
You see, and you choose a person who doesn't want to learn, or who can't be told anything, or who does not want to learn from others. That person is not going to improve, change, or become better.
Yeah.
You have chosen a problem because things are changing every day. They will need to learn you every day, because you're looking at yourself today. You see, you're looking at yourself today, and maybe now that you're in a relationship, you are an accountant, and the guy is an engineer, or is also an accountant, and then your life 10 years from now will be completely different. 30 years from now will be so different. You see, why? Because life changes. You see, if I met you as a student, now I'm working. If I'm now working, tomorrow I'll be a manager. From that, I will be an executive. From
Yeah.
that, I will be an owner of a business. And I will run multiple companies, and all of that. Life is constantly changing. But if you have a person who is refusing to learn, and they are only interested in knowing this person that they married, who is an engineer, now when this person becomes a manager, this person still doesn't change.
Yeah.
When this person now becomes a CA and an executive, he doesn't change. He's not learning that my wife is no longer that young girl at work. She's now, telling other men to do things, and they are jumping around to do things for her. You see, so life changes. If your person doesn't learn, people who don't learn, they become like dinosaurs. It's very simple. They
And then,
extinct.
how do we, now that you have learned all this different, I think choosing, it's, then I think we might have touched a bit on how to maintain it, which is the wisdom part. So if you're listening to this, just go back to the part where we were talking about wisdom, how to get wisdom. And someone is saying that, Pastor, I've done step 1 and step 2. This guy is not really proposing. Do I just move away? Because I've already given myself, not necessarily the other side, but I've just invested so much in both of us.
Yeah.
How do we move on into getting into marriage? Because some of the ladies, they're saying that I actually like this guy, and he looks like a good guy. I see what you're talking about, but at this point where we are, the big question is not happening.
He's not asking the big question.
Yes.
You can ask it yourself.
Will you marry me?
You know,
Yeah.
go shoot your shot and let's see what happens. Well, we generally say that's trying many new things in life,
They
and
actually are.
defying the odds and
Yeah.
not conforming to the norms and all of that. I wouldn't recommend it though. I wouldn't recommend it though.
No, sir.
So, that's why I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier to say sometimes you need somebody who speaks for you and who helps
see.
you to get things in shape. So if you see that the question is not popping and you are not getting to the bottom of why it's not popping, then you might need somebody who has a different set of eye to see exactly what's happening and they can help you through that process. Sometimes you realize that the guy is just not popping the question because his financial clock is not yet there, you know, because guys work with that financial clock there. Sometimes they're like, yeah, I need to get this box ticked, and I have this much money, and I've got this car, and I've got this house, and all of this, then I can get married. But for you as a lady, it could be different, you know. The clock is definitely different. Yours is a biological one. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
21, 22, 25, 27. By now I should have been married. I'm 35. I should have been married already. So the clocks are very different. So in that's where you see, it seems like I'll always go back to um, premarital counseling or counseling. If you engage the services of a counselor, you realize that one of the first important things that you establish is, where's your relationship going. Usually it's part of my first conversations with a new couple, with any new couple, to say, okay, tell me, where are you guys coming from, how have things been in the past, what have you been enjoying, and what is the future outlook, what are you guys thinking, and you know that even helps you to start putting things into shape because you are starting to talk about it. You see, if you haven't been talking about marriage for the last 2 years, you have never heard him talking about it, and you're still wondering what's the story. You started a relationship. He just said, I love you. You said, yes, I love you too. And where is this love supposed to take us? You see, those are things that we're supposed to. I was recently part of a conversation where a gentleman mentioned that he had different relationships, and he said that one of the relationships, so he had different relationships, and and he was asked to say, what is this relationship? He said that this is an undefined relationship. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, it's undefined. But the girl was thinking that we are getting married. But in his head, he says it's undefined.
Yeah.
You get it? So, as a lady, you're better off when things are clear to say, okay, cool. A month, 2 months, we're getting comfortable with each other. Where do you see yourself in the next, 2 years, 1 year? There are many ways of asking the question to say, when are you planning to get married, Charlie? Oh, I said Charlie, interesting. When are you planning to get married?
Yeah.
When are you? So instead of asking him, when are you marrying me or what? Questions like, so where do you see yourself in the next 12 months?
Yeah.
Well, I see myself like this. Okay. And spiritually, do you have any plans? How are you going? This is a chilled conversation, not like a serious. Also the way that you ask the question. Sometimes ladies
Really?
ask those questions in a way that's intimidating.
You don't say
Now
that.
the guy is like,
We
he's
need to
feeling
talk.
now he's feeling like he's in an interview. Where do
Sure.
you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Yeah.
It's now different. So the tone and the whole setting and all of that, well, look, in the next 5 years, I look at myself, in the next 12 months, I look at myself, being a happily married wife and all of that. Already he knows that, well, If you're looking at yourself as a married wife, then who is going to marry you? You see, so already, because if you are not talking about marriage, it's not going to happen.
True.
You have to talk about it. You have to be talking about marriage for you to get there. And that's the power of your words. To say the more he avoids the conversation, the longer it's going to take you, or it's not going to happen. If he's not having that conversation with you, chances are someone else is hearing those words somewhere. You might just not be the person. So if a guy is taking long, you see, men know what they want. They are not confused about what they want. I can tell you that every man knows what they want, and they are very sure of who they want to marry, whether you are the one or you are not. But they can easily spend 3 years and they know it's not going to ever happen, that they marry you. You see, but you as a lady, now you also need to have, you see, that's why I'm always saying that it's important to have a counselor, because the moment you have a counselor or a mentor, you will start putting some goals and milestones in place to say, well, let's tick this box, engagement. Let's tick this box. It's lobola. I was sitting with a couple recently. I'm like, okay, let's tick box number 1, family introductions. Just for your family to know that you now have a beloved and you are serious about them.
Yeah.
And not to say you are taking your beloved to go introduce. No, to say now that your father and mother knows, this was to the guy, because it's a sign that shows that the man sees you as an important part of his life. Every person, every man, if they are in love with you, they will take you to those that are important.
Yeah.
But if those that are important to him don't know you, it means you don't exist in his life. You are not there. You see?
True.
So it's a milestone. So I set it up for them because I'm seeing that, okay, marriage should be happening somewhere around 12 months from now. But let's set some milestones right now to say, what's the first milestone? Go talk to your dad and say, oh yeah, daddy, this is me. Oh, I found someone. I have a friend, that I'm working with, and all of that. Sometime in the future, because your father knows that you would want to get married one day. And then milestone number 2 after that, oh, daddy, look, I'm now doing this. We set up some milestones already for them, so they know already to say, it's clear for them to say, oh, look, this is milestone number 1. When we tick it, we do number 2. When we tick it, we do number 3, number 4, number 5. Simple as that. But if you are just the 2 of you, and the conversations, maybe you bring up the conversation and he always finds a way to dodge it and to avoid it, you need somebody who can speak for you. Get a mentor, get someone. To be easy.
So, Pastor, I'm listening to this conversation, and someone is like, "Wow, I like what this pastor is saying, and I just want him to be that person for me and my partner." And they want to get hold of you. What's the best way to get hold of you?
The best way to get hold of me? Well, I'm a pastor at Redemption Center.
Okay.
So if they're in Cape Town, please feel free to come to church, and you'll definitely see me in person. And then, if not, I'll give you my email address that I use for my counseling
Clients.
communications. Yes.
Okay.
And then you have it.
I think I might have put it on the first episode.
Is it?
I think so. I think so.
You can add my email address there. Email address will be fine. I usually respond to my emails every day.
Yeah.
So you can add my email address there. Well, I'm happy to help. It's my passion. I enjoy it, and whatever the issues are, whatever any challenges, and you don't even have to have challenges. For you to have, a mentor in your relationship.
Sure.
You don't have to have challenges. It's not only for, people that have relationships that are say, no, my relationship, it's about to break. Let me find someone who can stitch it together again. No,
Sure.
you can literally have somebody who can help you, to enrich your marriage, to enrich your relationship, literally just making it stronger.
Yeah.
And just to even make it fun and spicy. That's literally what it is. So I'm available. Talk to me, reach out to me. I'm happy to help.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Pastor. I know you'll be traveling. You mentioned it as well. And I think the podcast is going to miss you a lot. And I'll,
I'll miss it too.
yeah, and I think I'll see. My wife was just talking about ideas on how to make the next sessions more interactive and doing it online and all those stuff. So I think I'll make that available for us to catch up on online on that. But thank you so much for the value that you add. Um, this is one of the things that I tried doing in my early life. I don't know if you still remember the gentlemen's meetings.
I do. I do remember the gentleman's.
And then I disqualified myself here.
And you're doing very well. You're doing very well. I'm always happy to be here.
Sure.
Looking into the future for the period that I'm away.
Yeah.
We definitely can catch up online and do some
Yeah.
sessions. Even during COVID, all my sessions were online.
Online,
with people,
yes. Yeah.
most of them. So it won't be something
It's
new at
doable,
all.
yeah.
And many people are accustomed to online. So let's go for it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Pastor, for this session. And I think in conclusion, is there anything that you want to round off that even after listening to this, they're like, yeah, this is my take home.
Take home.
Yeah.
I think for today, I don't know why I'm always talking about it. Just be very hopeful.
Yeah.
Even if you have been hurt in the past, you can do it and you can do it right the next time.
Sure.
If you take the necessary corrective measures, and do better. Don't settle for less. Marriage is meant to be enjoyed. Relationships are meant to be the best relationships that you can ever be in. So don't settle for less. If you are not happy in your relationship, if you are not enjoying, or you feel something is missing, don't settle for less. Grow yourself into your full potential in marriage. It's very important, and never give up. There are people who are living the dream. If someone else is there, you can get there. You can get that spouse that you love. You can. Don't lose hope. Be expectant and keep doing what you have to do, which is growing yourself. And it will happen. And when it happens, because you have made yourself stronger in preparation, you'll be amazed at how beautiful it will be. And you will realize that it was worth the wait. So, yeah, I would say those will be my last words.
Thank you so much. I just had an idea now that when you do the book launch, hopefully it will be this side. Please come through as well, and just to give us an appetizer of the book.
The book launch.
Yes.
Beautiful. Well, I think this festive season I'm going to spend some time.
Yeah.
I've got a number of goals that I have set up. So
yeah,
maybe the next time we do something, we might have everything done on the first book.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pastor. Appreciate it so much.
For having me.
You guys, yes, you guys have a wonderful night, day, and morning.